Life is made up of moments, some great ones, some terrible ones. Moments make up the man or woman. What do you do to prepare for that? What do you do when it has arrived? What do you do when it has passed? You don't make the moments make you. This is the Muamba Moments.
Donald. The terrific Donald Thomas.
Oh man, stop it.
Welcome to the Muamba Moments, man. I'm excited to have you here, man. Thank you for
Happy to be here.
allowing us into your place of business now. I want to start from the beginning. We've obviously played together, but what does football mean to you?
Football to me was a platform to set me up for my afterlife after football, so to speak. So I'm grateful for football. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for football. Football doesn't define who I am, you know what I mean? It was who I was when I was playing, but I was also, something else as well. But football allowed me to do a lot of things, meet a lot of different people, travel, put me in position to open up my own business.
You played in the NFL, the biggest platform there is in football, the greatest competition. How did you get there? Only a select few get to do that.
Hard work, dedication, determination, discipline.
That's a lot.
It is. But
Let's unravel it, all of it. But I always like to start from the beginning, because I think that everyone, before you reach a certain level of excellence,
Right.
you have to have gone through certain moments that make you who you are. So I want to start from the beginning.
So I think, one thing with me was I always, as a little kid, I always, said to myself, like, I want to be like those guys on TV. And it wasn't football, it was really baseball and basketball. But I mean, and I told my parents this like a few years ago, and I was like, no disrespect to y'all, because you guys did a lot for me and my sisters growing up, but I always looked at you guys as like, you guys did what you guys had to do, to get where you guys were and raising us. But I always wanted more for myself. And I never knocked what you guys did, but I always wanted to become like a household name. And I just knew that like me kind of just, living a regular, ordinary life wasn't good enough for me. So I just think that, I just took that and ran with it, just knowing that I always wanted more for myself. And I knew that it was somehow, some way I was going to obtain fame and be on TV someday. So I think that was like my main driving force as far as to get where I am today, or
Accomplish what you've accomplished.
right, playing and stuff like that.
So, I mean, I can imagine if baseball and basketball were your first love, if you allow me to say. Were you thinking MLB? Were you thinking NBA?
Well, I knew NBA wasn't gonna happen, but I had baseball aspirations, big time, and so that kind of fell to the wayside a little bit as I got older. And so it's a funny story, because when I went to UConn, I was just a regular student, and I always wanted to be a household name. And you go from being, a star athlete in high school to everybody knowing your name in the paper, picture in the paper.
What sport did you play in high school?
Basketball and baseball.
Basketball and baseball, okay.
Right.
And then you go to UConn.
Right. And at that time, they were the mecca of basketball for college basketball.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, you go from that, you seeing those guys, and the point guards are taller than me. It's like you get a little like, okay, this is another
reality
basketball.
check.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a tough pill to swallow, just to go to being a regular student. I didn't get a scholarship for baseball or anything like that. So I was just a number. I was one of 30,000 kids on campus. And so it wasn't good enough for me. So I kind of realized like I had to do something, and I met, other players on the team, and they kind of encouraged me to play, like, you're big enough. I'm like, yeah, I am big enough. I just never played before, period. I just can't walk, just go out there, Division I program. And then I went home and thought about it, and I did it. I came back to school after Christmas break and worked out, lifted every day, ran every day till about the end of the school year, and finally I literally ran into the head football coach. He was on the track. I was in the weight room lifting, and I saw him. I sprinted out there. I told him who I was, that I was a freshman, and I wanted to play football. And he looked at me and told me to come in the office, the next day, and they'll set something up for me, a little workout. And they set something up like a week later, and went from having a little private workout to eventually like walking onto the team.
Man, this is a great story. So, you mean to tell me your whole football career, and we'll get into some of the details in there, but playing in the NFL, the highest level there is in football, highest platform, the most competition, and you mean to tell me that journey for you started with a leap of faith, having to approach your coach?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say leap of faith. I never looked at it like that. I just saw it as like an opportunity to finally get to talk to him. In my head, I was just like, there was no kind of like failing. So it was like, I knew that once I was able to talk to him, for him to see me, there would kind of be like, hopefully like a no-brainer, like, okay, let's give this kid a shot at least to see what he can do. And I had prepared so much. I felt like physically I was like almost ready. Not quite there yet though, but I knew that I still had a lot of learning to do. But I just wanted to see if I could have, made the team, and I just thought it'd be a cool story to tell my kids, like, Daddy played, football in college on TV.
Right,
at least,
right,
you know
right.
what I mean? Like
that's what I want to touch on. So, a lot of the times you see people who've achieved a level of success and greatness, and I guess most of them have started to work on that journey forever, since they were kids, and it's obviously different for you. You didn't grow up thinking you'd be playing in the NFL or playing professional football. Like, at that specific point, were you dreaming big? Were you thinking NFL?
No. Like literally almost every teammate that I had in college started playing football when they're like 8 years old.
Right.
Tackle football, they've been playing forever. And here I am, 19 years old, and had never put on a helmet, shoulder pads, any of that stuff, So they literally like grew up living and breathing football, and here I am like, just like newbie coming on, like just got the size, never really played before. So it was just different, and I realized that I had to, like my story is like super unique in that sense, because there's not too many guys that can say that they played, 7, 8 years in the NFL and started all these games and, and have only been playing for about 10 years.
Before that.
And they accomplished all that stuff in that short period of time. So, no, I definitely really realized the uniqueness of my story. I tend not to even think about it though, because I just do. And at the time when I was playing, there's no time to really sit back and dwell on it. You got to just keep going, competing, trying to get better each and every day,
So, if you can take yourself back at that point, you're starting your journey, let's call it, and you're thinking, hey, I want to make the team. What drove you? What motivated you?
I always had like a competitive edge to me. So like, I think like the main thing was just, competing, like just proving to myself that I could do it. Like the minute I got on that field, like I knew I was a football player. Just like when I got on the baseball field, I knew I was a baseball player. When I got on the basketball court, I knew I was a basketball player. So like when I got on the football field, like I just fell right in with everyone else. But I knew that I had all the tools to compete with everybody. I was fast, I was strong, I was picking up on the plays fast, I just had to learn how to play the game. I knew the nuances, I didn't know the fine nuances of the game. I knew the general overall what it was about, like, stop the run, stop the ball, we got to score a touchdown, kick the ball up. I knew everything like that, but just learning the game in different, circumstances, time, management of the game, like what we're trying to accomplish in this part of the field, stuff like that. I had to learn, but I just knowing that I could compete with them, you know, with the little experience that I had at playing football, was enough for me. I always just been a competitor, so I just always wanted to compete, and I wasn't just gonna go out there and just let anybody just push me around anyway. So that was like my main thing was like I was just competing with everyone every day just to be good.
Football is I would think, one of the toughest sports out there.
Yeah.
You need to believe in yourself, especially if you play at the highest level. And, you know, NCAA D1 is super competitive as well. How did you create that confidence? Because I'm sure it had to carry you through all the way through to when you reached the professional level. How did you create it? How did you maintain it over the course of your career?
I think, you know, honestly, I think that, you know, I always had, like I said, a competitive edge to me. But I think, you know, my strength in the weight room is what kind of propelled me to the next level. You know, once I finally started playing in college, starting in college, I was stronger than a lot of the guys out there I was going against. And I was like, from day one when I got on the team, I was probably one of the top 10 strongest to being like #1 strongest by like my junior year. I just think that gave me an edge being, you know, out there, and I was able to be so strong. Sometimes I could get away with not being as technically sound as someone that's been playing for so long and has perfect hand placement and perfect foot movements and all that kind of stuff. I was able to muscle guys around a little bit, and I think it showed itself once I really started, you know, starting at guard and moving people around. I was doing stuff that other guards weren't doing. And then once I got to the league, I was a little nervous because I knew that now you go from, you know, essentially putting the top cream of the crop all-star teams from Division I players are on NFL teams, and even the worst NFL team, all those guys that are on those teams were star players at the highest level of college football for the most part. But once I got there and I got through my first practice and I really saw, like, you know, there's these guys, some of them are stronger than me, some of them aren't, but one thing, they're all good, no matter what. So I just knew that now I had to fine-tune my game even more to like really understand what I need to do. Now I really need to focus on my technique and my craft, and now use my strength to be able to compete.
I like what you said, and I think it's true for any field in this world, period. Once you get to the top of the top, there's small differences between one person to the other, one business to another, one team to another. How did you manage to still separate yourself? Because the NFL is well known for not lasting long for a lot of players. 7 years. What did you use to separate yourself?
Just working. Like there was never like a true off season. I never had a true off season. I never had an off season where I just sat around for a couple months and just went on vacation, went like laid on the beach, or flew to LA for 2 weeks, went to Miami for another few weeks, went to, you know, all these different places like a lot of some other guys do, and they just fall off. You know, I wasn't partying every weekend or every night going out. I was working. You know, I was working out. Sometimes, like, you know, I played in Miami, so I was in Miami, so I needed to travel to Miami, but
Dolphins, that is.
Right, yeah. So, but I was still working though. Like, you know, like I would stay work out at the facility with the strength coaches. You know, when it was time, when guys came back, I was already in shape. I needed to get back into shape. Just the drive to want to, you know, make myself better every off season. Like I had goals, like I wanted to get stronger. So like once the season was over with, I wanted to be stronger than how I was when we started our workouts from last year to this year. So just constantly working, constantly trying to be the first to finish on the sprints, or it just was important to me to always want to keep working, because I saw guys that were high draft picks, didn't last for 1 or 2 years. I've seen first rounders not last 2 years in the league. I've seen guys, you know, that had all the talent in the world, but just couldn't get it mentally upstairs once they got all this money, that you still got to go out there and perform every single week, you know, and every year, and just fall off. And I was like, I'm not going to be one of those guys. And I never got a big contract till the end of my career anyway. You know, I was always a guy that was right there making the league minimum for my year, you know, so I always had drive to be like, man, I know I'm better than this dude, but I'm not making even a quarter of his salary this year. And I should be though. So, you know, just want to, that right there alone would drive me to want to work harder anyway.
You found a way to motivate yourself.
It went from college was all about like you wanted just to get on the field and play, for me at least, was I wanted to get on the field and play because I knew I was better than the guy in front of me, to get into the league and starting as a rookie, and then you got a guy next to you that has all the talent in the world, doesn't work anywhere near as hard as you, and he makes so much more money than you. And everyone, you know, you play the game to make money. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone kind of says like, you know, you play the game for the love of the game. But I mean, football is a violent sport. Everybody knows the risk that you put your body through.
Not everyone knows.
Well, not really. Well, I'm saying as far as the players know.
What's the biggest misconception, do you think, that people have on professional football players?
That it's, I think everyone realizes the severity of how rough the sport is. I don't think people realize like the constant beating that your body takes for so long through a season, even through practice and stuff like that. But I think they think, you know, you just kind of like lay around all week and go in the locker room and play video games and crack jokes and, you know, and go out on Sunday and perform and get paid all this money. And it's not that, you know, it's a grind. It's, you know, every day of the week is early mornings and meetings and practice and lifting weights and, you know, taking care of your body in the training room, and you don't feel like doing that stuff. You got to still eat right. You got to go home and deal with home life too. And it's like, it's a lot. I mean, you know, granted that, you know, you get paid a lot of money to do it. So people look at it differently, because it really is just a game. It doesn't have any bearing on the importance of life. It doesn't change anything in the real world, but it's part of life because this is what we made sports into.
Right.
But it's a hard business.
It's part of life and it's a hard business. You're 100% correct. I believe there's so many lessons within the game of football, and especially when you reach it at such a high level, that you're capable of gaining and learning from it. And one of the things that I heard when you were speaking to me, you mentioned goals and how it's always changed, and I'm intrigued by that. I mean, from the beginning, you just wanted to do well at a workout, private workouts, and then your next goal was, let me make the team, and then, hey, I want to play, hey, I want to start, hey, let's make it to the next level.
Right.
How did the goal setting affect your career, your life as a whole? Because I think that's a skill that a lot of people should have or need to have, but don't necessarily do have. And you seem to have had experience with it quite early.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have goals in life in general. I feel like you got to work to something. You know, if you don't have a goal, you're not really working, just going about life. But you know, my goals, like I said, like my goal was to walk onto the football team. My next goal was to play. You know, my goal was to get on the field however I could. So, you know, I made it on special teams, kickoff return, setting a wedge. And my goal then was to become the best wedge setter in the country. And then my off-season goal was to become the biggest, fastest, strongest guard in the country. You know, and then at the time there were 119 teams. So I knew that there were 238 guards, right and left guards, starters, and I needed to be number one, you know? So every summer when we leave from school, we had to write down our goals to our strength coach. I wrote down the same goals for 3 years straight to become the biggest, strongest, fastest guard in the country. Every year I wrote that. And he would ask me, how are you gonna attain it? I was like, I'm just gonna work at it. I'm gonna eat as much as I can. I'm gonna lift as much as I can. I'm gonna run as fast as I can. And that's gonna propel me to be better than everyone else, because I know that when I get on the field, everything else is gonna take care of itself. And that was my goal. And then my goals when I got to the league, it was obviously, once I realized like my senior year, it was like, okay, now My goal is to get drafted. My goal is to make an NFL roster. My goal is essentially to start. You know, my goal is to play for at least 10 years. You know, obviously, like, you know, you can't predict your future with injuries and all that, so that was cut short. But, you know, I started hitting goals. I made the team. I started as a rookie. You know, I started a lot of games and I played a lot, you know. And then the next one was to obtain the big contract to set myself up for the future, for my family, for my kids and stuff like that. So I hit that goal. So it's just like, you know, you have to have goals and you have to know that you have to, no one's gonna give you nothing. No one's gonna give you a thing, especially in this sport. In football, football is probably one of the most, professional football is probably one of the most cutthroat businesses out there, period, hands down. And no one's gonna hand you anything. Yeah, you might be a high draft pick and they might hand you some money up front, but you still have to work for the rest of it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's like, for me, I was a 6th round draft pick. You know, I was low on the totem pole. I was constantly clawing, scratching just to stay around my first couple years. So I was like, I just knew no one's gonna give me anything. If I wanted, I had to go take it. I had to outwork everybody. I had to show the coaches that I was working. So that's what I had to do.
We're gonna hold on to this idea when we finish with football. But when we talk about winning a Super Bowl, playing at a championship level, you played with one of the best organizations out there.
Right.
Tell me about your time there.
So.
And what did you learn the most from there?
Right. I think, you know, signing with New England was probably like the savior of my career. Because I had really kind of like lost any love that I had for the game. At the, you know, the previous stops that I had. And when I got there, I realized, you know, like, when you're dealing with Bill Belichick, you know.
If you don't mind me asking, why did you lose the love for the game at your previous stops?
Just because football became like a chore. You know, we weren't winning games where I was before. So like, you kind of like, I didn't get it, like, you know, you got the older vets that they kind of were just like, you know, they were cool with not winning as long as they got paid, you know. I was more so like, couldn't understand that. You know, I was 22 years old, 23, 21. You know, I wanted to win games too and, you know, make money and all that. And it was kind of like, you know, it was like the mentality wasn't there of a winning mentality. And so in college, it was competitive. We would win games. Everybody wanted to win. Like, you got there and it was just a little different. And then like the coaches were hard on you and it was just like a lot of pressure and, you know, and it was rough. I mean, you see guys, it was a revolving door. There was guys that'll be here today, gone tomorrow. Be here today, gone today. You know, like, you know, so it's just like, it was rough. It was like, you're constantly on your P's and Q's and biting your nails and hoping they weren't coming for you. And, you know, it just became rough. Cause like I was expendable. I was a 6th round pick. Yeah, I was starting, but it didn't cost them any money to get rid of me, you know?
I have a really good question for that moment in your life. If you can bring yourself back to it. Because I want the people watching this to really get something from it. And I believe that a lot of times you might believe in yourself and you have set goals that you want to accomplish and they're great goals, but your surrounding is just toxic.
Right.
Sort of like that moment in your career,
right,
where you want more, but people are just satisfied with being mediocre. Yeah. How did you deal with that? Being the competitor that you are and wanting more for yourself and for your team.
You got to block it all out.
Ooh, talk to me about that.
Well, it just becomes a mentality, are you going to be a follower or a leader? And at that level, to come in and be a leader is hard. So you have to really kind of focus on yourself and put yourself around people that have the same kind of ideology that you have. You know, if you want to hang out with the guys that want to gamble all the time and just go out and not really focus on football, not take care of their bodies, and you can do that if you want. But is that how you really want your career? Because everybody's different in the league. Everyone's different in the rankings, no matter what position it is. So if you want to hang out with guys that they paid all this money to and they know they can't get rid of them, and you can't really hang with them, but you want to, you can go ahead and hang with them, but they're going to see it, and it's not going to do anything good for your career. Or you want to hang with guys that you all are in the kind of same tax bracket, and you guys all have like that same drive and want to get better because you want to stay around, you want to play in the league for a long time. You know, so I just really had to surround myself with the right people. Sometimes I had to surround myself with nobody.
Mm-hmm. What happens when you're by yourself?
You surround yourself with yourself, and you just kind of worry about yourself.
Did you do anything outside of football to kind of get yourself mentally ready?
You know, I prayed a lot about it. Sometimes, especially my first couple years in the league, I literally, in the morning time, I'll probably have the radio on, driving to the facility. I turn it off and I'll pray for like 15 minutes while I was driving in there. Just getting my mind right for the day, because it was such a grind and it was so stressful at times. But I mean, honestly, when you get to that level, you have to really take care of yourself. And I say that like mentally and especially physically, that you really can't, you don't have time there's really no time to slack. And if you do that, you won't be around for long.
So you're living literally your life with a sense of urgency.
Of course, and you learn that quick. Like you really learn what that term means.
What does it mean? What does it mean to you?
Everything that you do means something. It's going to affect you in the long run. So every time that I would say, if I told myself like I'm cool, I'm not going to work out this week, in the off season, it's going to affect me in the long run. Or if during the season, if I'm going to go out on a Friday night, and go out and have a good time, and when I should be home hydrating, getting ready for walkthrough on Saturday to get ready to travel to the game, it all affects you. Or staying out late during the week when you got practice in the morning, or not doing those extra sets in the weight room. It all catches up to you. It all, not putting in the time watching film when you go home, or staying after practice watching film, or really focusing during practice and joking around with your buddies or something like that. Everything that you do has a purpose, and you better make the best of your time, because you really don't know how much time you have in the league. If you could be here today and gone tomorrow.
You never know.
Never know.
That's good. So you're in New England, Coach Belichick.
Yep. So I signed with him. I meet him in the hallway. He told me he was happy to have me, and it was just different in the room. Like that whole building was different. It was like fresh air. It was like you walked in, you understood the seriousness that goes on in there. You understand that this is a winning culture, and that you ain't walking into something where you can just do whatever you want. But it was good for me because that's what I came from in college. It was kind of like really strict regimen. But within that, I realized like how laid back it really was too. And the reason why they could be a little bit more laid back was because they knew that everyone was bought into the program, to the system, So like, the first day, football is, meeting starts at 8, everyone's sitting down ready to go at 7:55, waiting for coach to walk in.
You got to learn that quick.
Right. And so in New England, it was like 7:55, I'm looking around at my locker like, no one's moving. We got a meeting at 8, right? And yeah, we're fine. We'll just chill out. 7:58, like I'm like, all right, I'm going in the room. Like at 7:59, everybody just gets up and walks in the room. It's just like, it's different because they know no one's gonna walk in at 8 o'clock or after 8. So it didn't have to be as like, get in at 7:55, everyone's sitting down, because they knew everyone was going to be there, because they knew that they had a common goal and purpose, and no one was going to mess that up. Practice was real strict. We would always run after practice. He would say, put it in the bank. We hated it, but we knew that in the long run it was going to help us out. You just had to do your job. Like that's his motto, do your job. If you do your job, you'll last in New England. You do exactly what he wants you to do. When your number's called, you'll last. You'll stick around. Now you got to deliver though. That's the one thing about playing there is it really steps your game up. That's why you see guys that are no-name guys before, and they turn into these big superstars, or guys that play for 5, 6, 7 years in New England and they're Super Bowl MVPs and stuff like that. He just takes players. He sees something in players that he has a special ability to see, that other teams don't see. He knows how to use them. And so he saw something in me, gave me a shot, and it worked out for me.
So is it them being a part of a great system, or you think it's those specific individuals that do just well?
It's a combination of both. The system is set up, right? And everyone knows that the system works. All you have to do is play at your highest level every single time.
Do your job.
Do your job. I mean, it's just that simple, you know, and guys buy into it. And he takes guys that other teams didn't want, and he turns them into 10-year players. And they pays them well, and they play for 10 years and win 4 Super Bowls, 5 Super Bowls with them, and have great careers.
You played on the line for one of the best, greatest quarterbacks of all time. How was that experience like?
You know, that was nerve-wracking at first. You know, like, because you know who's behind you. You know, you got Tom Brady behind you, you know. But once you get through, you know, the whole mindset of being kind of like, oh, God, I can't let Tom get touched, to just playing, like, I've got this far by blocking this guy in front of me or blocking these linebackers or running these plays. It's no different. Linemen take pride in not letting the quarterback get touched. So it doesn't matter if it's Tom Brady or if it's, you know, the third string quarterback from Podunk U that, you know, made an NFL roster. He's out there. Like, our job is to not let him get touched. So I just had to get over that mindset of, it's Tom. Like, I can't let Tom get touched, and just go out there and play, you know, and just take pride. If you take pride in your work, you know, then what you put out there, you got, you know, 65, 70,000 people in the stands watching you. You got another few million watching you on TV. You got commentators that are in your face, you know, putting cameras in your face when you mess up. You don't want that. You don't want them booing you. So you just, you know, you play well.
How did you handle that? How did you handle the pressure? And I'm talking about over the course of your career. I mean, I got a quarterback. You're an offensive lineman. I got a quarterback behind me that I don't want to touch. I don't want to be touched. I got to perform, because if I don't, I'll probably be out of here.
Right.
So many things going on. These fans, the extra million people that are still watching.
Right.
How did you handle that?
Man, you got to block it out and play. You just got to go out there and play. You get caught up in all that, you'll never play well. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, I don't care, like, during training camp, it'd be 100 degrees outside. But when the whistle blows and the quarterback's going through his cadence, you're not thinking about how hot it is. Or when it's 20 degrees outside and the wind's whipping and it's a blizzard and the quarterback goes through his cadence, you're not thinking about how cold it is. You're thinking about the play at the time. You just got to go out there and play. You're not thinking about anyone in the stands. You have to block all that out. To make it to that high of a level, you can't be worried about everything else.
I think you've gotten so used to doing it that you're just saying it. You got to block it out. What do you say to people that have to deal with distractions, whether it be other things that are coming in their way of what they have to achieve? Because that's essentially what you have to deal with.
So life is...
How do you block it out, whatever it might be?
Right. You have to adapt first and foremost to whatever gets thrown at you. I learned that quick. If you don't adapt, you won't be around for long. So you have to adapt to what gets thrown at you, and then you have to understand what you need to do, and then you can't let anything else detour you from what you need to do. It's easy to say, but it's not easy to do, you know? I've learned that a great deal once I got really done playing football, more so than while I was playing football. Just because once you get into the real world...
Let's talk about that.
Right.
First of all, talk about being an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm still convinced you had a twin. You look nothing like this when you used to play.
Right. Yeah, so I was probably about 40 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
You know, but just like when you get done with football, there's no need to be 310, 320, like walking around for what? Like, I'm not moving, you know, I don't need to be on the field. I don't need to weigh that much. So, I mean, I just, you know, I just felt like I just needed change, you know, and I was going through a lot in my life at the time too, the transition of, it's not easy to transition from the game. Since some guys have a tough time, and I think, you know, once I got done playing football, you know, obviously I opened the store up, but I was going through a lot in my life too, personal life, and, you know, I went through a divorce, and I had 2 kids, and, you know, so that was all a whirlwind that was happening all at the same time, opening the store, going through all that, 2 little ones. It was rough. And so I realized that I had to step back and process what was going on, understand that you got to get a hold of everything because, you know, you're 31 years old at the time. No one's going to help you out anymore. Like, you know, and it felt like when you're playing, you know, you need something done. Though, what do you need done? Okay, we'll get somebody to call this guy, call this number. We've already talked to him. You know, go over there, skip the line. Blah, blah. No, like there's, you know, I got to pay sales taxes. I got to go pick the kids up from school. I have to pay all my bills on time. Like I have to, all the bills for the store on time. I got to make sure I get truck orders done. I got to make sure that all my employees are getting paid. You know, I got to make sure that my rent for here is getting paid. You know, so I just had to really step back and process what was going on. So when I say you have to adapt, like, okay, like I had to get out of football player mode and get into regular Donald Thomas every day. No one's gonna give me anything. Like I'm back in the real world. Like, yeah, it was cool. People were like, oh, you play football, blah, blah, yeah, that was cool. But that's not gonna get me, but so far, if I, you know, rest on that, these lights will be off in here, you know? So it's kind of just more so like, you had to get into full-time daddy daycare mode. You got to get full-time boss mode. And then I really had to, I put those two together, then I really had to, you know, take care of myself too. So I think that's where the transition with the 40-pound weight loss and making sure I stay, you know, in shape and making sure that, you know, I'm healthy for my children, making sure I'm healthy for myself. And then just really focusing, like, you know, I think football helped me out in that aspect of being strict. Like I know I get up at 6, get the kids together, get them to school, go straight to the gym, come back, shower, eat, come to work. By that time, it's time to go pick them up from school, extracurriculars, bed, you know, dinner, baths, bedtime story, bed, you know, and that's like, that's my day. And so like, I couldn't do that before because I was playing football, but you know, you kind of get propelled into doing that a lot faster when you're done with football, and if you don't, then.
What's the biggest thing that you learn from the game of football? I mean, we're sitting here, you're a business owner, you opened up arenas here in Indianapolis. What's the biggest thing that you took from football that maybe allowed you to be successful in this field as well?
You know, really that it's a business. You know, everyone, when you're playing football, everyone says it's a business, it's a business, it's a business. But, you know, you realize that it is a business, but once I got out of football and I opened up my own business, like I had to realize that this is a business. I have to conduct it as such, just like the owners and the GMs and the VPs of these NFL teams and NBA teams and Major League Baseball and hockey teams and all that. They conduct it like a business because it is. I mean, essentially, you know, you have to put the best product out. You have to have the best players. I need to have the best employees working for me. Everyone has to buy into one common goal. And if they can't do that, then they have to go. And so it was rough, you know, at first, like trying to get everyone on board, kind of trying to be, you know, the cool boss, you know, people's friend, and, you know, making sure everyone else was happy. But in the long run, I had to realize, like, this is a business. I can't be afraid to fire somebody. I can't be afraid to, you know, write somebody up or be stern with them. Because they have to understand that if they don't pick it up, they won't be here for too much longer. You know, so that was hard for me at first because I had never, you know, you're essentially playing with people's livelihoods. And that wasn't easy for me that's a tough pill to swallow because you know, we've always been on the opposite end of worrying, are they coming to get me, or am I gonna get cut or something like that, or training camp, like they're only gonna keep like 10 offensive linemen or 8 linebackers or something like that, and I don't know what number I am, you know, so it's just like, you go from being that guy to being the GM, so to speak, and kind of control, in control of everyone's kind of life here to a certain extent. It was hard, but I mean, I'm glad that I got to see that aspect on a higher level with football, to just realize that you really have to kind of turn off the personal kind of attachment a little bit. I still have it because it's not as serious as, football, but you just have to be, you have to be a boss, and that wasn't hard. It wasn't easy for me. Yeah.
And so, when we look at your journey and the different moments that made you who you are, it seems like you have different aspects of who you are.
Right.
And a lot of times people think that football players are just football players, but
Right.
you're a human being as well. I mean, you got kids, you went through a tough time, and there was a divorce along the way, career ended, started your own business. It's a lot. What's allowed you to keep going? What motivates you now?
Honestly, like my children, I just don't, like, my biggest fear is for my son to say to me when he gets to be about 16 or so, like, Dad, I thought you played NFL, like, why are you, you know what I mean? Like, where's all the riches, where's all the fame, like, where did it all go? Like, so I just think, like, my drive is just for them to, we all do things for our children. We all, I mean, for the most part, I look at it like I'm living for them. I want them to, I'm not gonna give them anything, but at the same time, like when I say give them anything, I'm not gonna just hand them, say, you're 21 here, take it, take all this, and you don't have to work for it or anything, because I had to work for everything I had. But I just want them to understand, like, that I'm just trying to raise them for them to have the best life possible, because there's so many people out there, so many kids that are growing up in worse or terrible conditions, and I just don't want them to ever have a taste of that life. So I think just my drive right now is to, do as much as I can for them, and then essentially, open up a whole bunch of these Ritas, and it'd be a family empire where they can, take these and run it, and then they can create more revenue for themselves. I just think that, that's like my main drive, is to do that for my children,
When you look back and you've grown immensely over the course of your career, your new position, if you were to go back to that moment when, in the middle of your career, a younger you, knowing what you know now, what's the first thing you would tell yourself?
I would have taken advantage of more of the programs in the off season that the NFL provides. I definitely would have gone to like that Harvard Business School. I just would have taken advantage of all like the little programs, setting myself up for the future. I probably would have, honestly, if you asked me that question, if I could have done things differently, I would have majored in business in college. You know what I mean? Like I was a political science major, but I would have majored in like business management, or just some type of economics or something, something like that I could have applied to running the business once I got done playing football. Because there's a lot that I had to learn. I was learning on the fly. I learned something every single day when this place was open. Something I didn't know I had to do once we got the doors open. I knew what needed to be done to get the doors open. I learned that stuff on the fly, but just working and the new things that I had to learn, and you have to do this. And I didn't even know that. Okay, well, show me what I have to do. How do I do that?
But you've already you were used to having to adapt to different.
Oh well, yeah.
settings.
I mean, you have to. Yeah. I mean, it's just like being in a game, and a play is called, and on the snap of the ball, the whole defensive front changes. You know what the play is, but now you gotta know how to block it up, the scheme of it, on the fly. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to be quick on your toes, and that's one thing I learned. So if I could have gone back, honestly, before I got to the league, I would have majored in business or some form of that, and then I would have taken advantage of all the little programs in the off season. even like the sports commentating stuff and all that. Just kind of open up doors for yourself. Probably would have done some more internships in the off
Give
season.
yourself different experience.
Yeah.
There's a boy out there that's watching this. What are you telling him? He said, hey, I want to be like Donald Thomas. I want to play at the highest level there is.
Yeah. Just like I tell any child or any kid, anytime I have a speaking engagement or anything, like, I'm no different from anybody else in the world. Like, I was just that kid that wanted more for myself. And I just took advantage of it, you know? Like, you can do anything you want to do. Honestly, I truly believe that. I feel like, you know, there's certain, you know, I'm not going to say that you can, if you want to do this, all you need to do is do this to obtain that. But I'm just saying that if you want it that bad, you'll find a way to get it done. You know, I had set myself up with, you know, going to UConn. So I was a, you know, good student. My parents stayed on me about my grades. So I'm thankful for them for staying on top of me so that I could get into a good university that had a good sports program. And then I was able to take advantage of that opportunity as far as being able to walk onto a team. But I'm just like, if you want something that bad, I mean, you can go do it. I mean, I'm no different from anyone else. You're no different from me. You know, everyone takes advantage of the opportunity. I was given some, you know, God-given, you know, size and athleticism at the same time. But if you want to do something, you don't let anyone else detour you or tell you differently. You know, you can do it.
Before we finish, we're here right now. What's the next moment for Donald Thomas? What is your next goal at this point in your life?
My next goal, honestly, is to, you know, open up at least 3 or 4 more of these Readers franchises in the Indianapolis area. And then I want to branch out to some other franchises. I want to get into some acting actually as well.
Okay.
I think that it's just something I've always kind of wanted to do. I've really never told people about it, but it's kind of something I've always wanted to do. But I just honestly, God, I just want to be successful with anything that I do, you know, and you know, honestly, take care of my family in the meantime. I just think that for me right now, one of my biggest things is just being like the best dad. Like, I want my kids just to understand like that dad he's sacrificed a lot for us, you know, for us to live like this and for us to be good and for, you know, the stuff that he did for us, you know. So I just think like my next step is just become a better daddy for my children and just, you know, be as successful as I can possibly be.
Good stuff. Well, I'm sure you'll be doing well in your next moment
Yeah.
in acting, and it's probably going to start with another leap of faith, but you already look like an action figure.
I appreciate it.
You'll
I'm
do
trying.
well. Thank you, Donald Thomas, for joining us.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you for your time here at the Muamba Moment.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.